going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mags. So, of course, Premier League season has ended, and we now know who the Premier League champions are. We know who the three teams are that are relegated. So here is my reaction to my Premier League predictions from the start of the season. Let's see how many I got right. Let's see how many I got wrong. Also, if you could hit a like on the video, that would be amazing. And also, if you could support the channel by subscribing as well, as I'm on the road to 500 subscribers. So with all that being said, let's get straight into the video. We're going to start from the relegation zone and go all the way up to, of course, the eventual champions. So first off, in 20th place, I'm going to go with Aston Villa. And that's who I went with at 20th place. And of course, they ended up finishing in 11th place. Moving on to 19th, and I chose West Ham in at 19th. They ended up, of course, finishing in at 6th. And of course, they had an absolutely fantastic season as well under David Moyes. Really great season. Very, very unlucky not to finish in a Champions League spot, only losing out by 1 point. Moving on to 18th place, and I predicted, of course, Fulham to finish here, one of the newly promoted sides. And of course, I was right in my prediction and predicting Fulham to finish in 18th place, because that is exactly where they finished. Not a very good season for Fulham, I've got to say. They only managed to win 5 games out of 38. They only got 28 points all told as well, which isn't amazing. And a really bad season all round for Fulham. Moving on to the bottom half of the table, and in its 17th place, just outside the relegation zone, I predicted my team, Newcastle United. And of course, the reason behind that being was the fact that Martin Dubravka was going to miss quite a bit of the season. Dwight Gale was going to miss out on quite a bit of the season as well, and Newcastle had still not signed anybody of note to be able to push the team forward in this season. And of course, with the takeover looming in the background as well, Steve Bruce in his second season as Newcastle United manager after finishing 13th last season, you know, I just thought he didn't look that impressive in the previous season, and I really thought he was going to cause a lot of controversy this season, and he did cause a lot of controversy this season. He didn't really put in a great team selection neither. You know, there was quite a lot of stuff looming around the club, and that was why I said 17th. And of course, I was wrong, gladfully, in the fact that Newcastle did manage to finish in a 12th place, but we only just managed to finish in that 12th place thanks to a good run at the end of the season where we won 5 out of 8 games. So we're only just able to get into that 12th place off of that impressive 5 wins in 8 game run. So of course I was wrong on that one. Moving on to 16th place, and I picked Brighton for here. I was right in this prediction, and the reason behind the prediction, of course, was that Brighton was lacking last season. They didn't seem to invest much going into this season, and I was right in my prediction because they ended up finishing 16th place. Moving on to 15th place, and of course, Crystal Palace was the team that I chose for 15th place, and I was sort of right on this one in a way, in the fact that Crystal Palace did end up eventually ending in 14th place in the league, so I was only 1 place off, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm sure Crystal Palace fans though won't be happy with that place, but they do have a massive refurbishment needed at the club, with Roy Hodgson as well retiring from them at the end of this season. He eventually moved on and is leaving the game, and of course a lot of players as well. We'll have to see what they can do for next season. Moving on to 14th place, and I got this one really, really wrong. I predicted West Ham in at 14th, West Brom, sorry, in at 14th place. For some reason, I don't know why I predicted them in at this place. I thought they would have done a lot better than they did. Unfortunately, they ended up going down in 19th place. Similar sort of situation, of course, to how Fulham played this season. They only managed to win 5 games, and they only ended up with 2 points less than Fulham, with 26 points out of 38 games. Not a fantastic season for West Brom, I've got to say. And they also ended up having Sam Allardyce as their manager as well to try and keep them up, which of course he didn't do. Moving on to 13th, and I predicted Sheffield United in the 13th, and I got this one really wrong because Sheffield United didn't have the season that they had previous under Chris Wilder. They really lacked this season, and they ended up going down in dead last, in 20th place in the league, only 23 points as well. 7 wins though. It was the losses that killed them, unfortunately, with 29 losses out of 38 games. So not a good season for Sheffield United. And of course they ended up losing Chris Wilder as well, as he did end up walking away mutually from the club. They did say they'd sacked him, but I believe he walked away mutually from the club. Moving on to 12th place, and I predicted Everton here. Now, at the beginning of the season, this prediction was well and truly wrong, in the fact that Everton were absolutely killing it at the beginning of the season. They were really, really good, sitting top of the league. It's quite a long time in the season as well. But then it ended up dying down a bit, and they did end up finishing in 10th place. So I still got it wrong, but I was a little bit closer, of course, by the end of the season. Only 2 places off of where I said they would finish. Moving on to the top half of the table, and in 11th place, I predicted Southampton finish in 11th. And of course, they ended up finishing in 15th. Again, not very good. They did have some good games, but they just couldn't keep it going, and they ended up finishing in 15th place. Moving on to 10th place, and I predicted, of course, Burnley to finish there. And again, not very good this season by Sean Dyche. They didn't have a very good transfer budget neither. I think they only spent about $1 million or something like that on players, which wasn't great. And of course, they ended up getting new owners as well, who have put the club into debt, so that hasn't been great for them neither. And they ended up finishing in 17th place down in the league, so nowhere near where I said they would finish, in 10th place. So I got that one wrong. Moving on to 9th, and I said Wolves to finish in at 9th place. I thought they would have had a really good season, but unfortunately, Raul Jimenez ended up getting injured. There was quite a few other players injured as well for the Wolves side, so they ended up finishing in the 13th place. Not a bad finish, mid-table finish, not too bad, but not the 9th place I predicted, so I got that one wrong. Moving on, of course, to 8th place, and I predicted Leeds United to finish in at 8th. I thought they were going to be a very good side this season, and I was right in my prediction, because they did end up only finishing 1 place below my predicted place, and they finished, of course, in at 9th in the league. So a really good season for Bazalzi at Leeds. They had a really good season, and hopefully it's a team that will stay in the Premier League for seasons to come. Moving on to 7th place, and I predicted Man United to finish in at 7th place, and of course they ended up having a somewhat better season than I thought they would, and of course the referees didn't harm the situation neither by giving them quite a few penalties. I know I've got to say it's the way it is. Unfortunately, that's the way the 6 teams in the Premier League run, and we all know who them 6 teams are, the ones that wanted to run away to a European Super League. But I predicted Man United to finish in 7th, and they ended up finishing in at 2nd. Moving on to the European spot, and of course I predicted Leicester to finish in at 6th place, and I wasn't far off. They did end up, of course, finishing in a 5th. They should have finished a lot higher. They were a very good team, as they always are. Leicester City is absolutely fantastic, and of course they ended up picking up the FA Cup as well this season. It's a shame that they couldn't finish in the Champions League spots because they fully deserved it. But still, fifth place, really respectable, and of course they get themselves into a European spot. In a fifth place, I predicted Arsenal, and of course, Arsenal ended up having a really bad season, and the whole ESL debacle as well didn't help matters neither. Arsenal's Arteta hasn't been very good for them. His tactics haven't been good. The selections haven't been good, and of course they ended up finishing in at 8th in the league. So they do, of course, miss out on a European spot. But you know, at the end of the day, that's what happens when your owner's focusing more on getting the money from the club than how your team competes in the league. So, of course, Arsenal ended up finishing in at 8th, and I got that one wrong because I predicted them to finish in at 5th. Moving on to the Champions League spots, and I predicted, of course, Tottenham to finish 4th. They ended up finishing 7th, so they got into the brand new UEFA Nations, UEFA Conference Europe spot in its 7th. So they're the first team to be able to compete in that. And then moving on to 3rd, I predicted Liverpool to finish 3rd. I didn't think Liverpool were going to be able to defend their Premier League title, and I was right in my prediction because, of course, they did end up finishing in 3rd. Moving on to 2nd place, and I predicted, of course, Manchester City to finish here. And the reason behind that being was I thought the number one choice was, of course, Chelsea because of how much they spent in the window. They had Frank Lampard as their manager as well. You know, everything was going in the way of Chelsea being the Premier League champions for me, and that's why I predicted Chelsea to finish 1st and Man City to finish 2nd. But of course, Man City ended up finishing 1st. They were absolutely dominant. Sergio Aguero as well putting in a great performance, and Man City putting themselves right back at the top of the table. And in Man City fans' eyes, probably the rightful spot for them at this moment in time. Chelsea, unfortunately, ended up finishing in 4th. Still not a bad position. They still got a European spot. Probably shouldn't have got it in my eyes neither because they weren't that great. After all, Timo Werner lacked quite a bit this season. He didn't look like the player that he looked like when he was playing in Germany, and Kai Havertz as well wasn't as good neither in my eyes. And of course they ended up sacking Frank Lampard as well and bringing in Tuchel from PSG. So that is my Premier League reactions to the Premier League predictions video from the start of the season. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all next time. Farewell, lads.